Back to camera talk.
Yeah, welcome to Camera Talk. No, Camera Talk's not today. It's not car talk either. You're tuned in to the Pinkbike podcast. We're going to do some bike talk. I'm joined by Dario DiGiulio and Matt Beer. I'm Mike Kasmer. We've got a pretty good show lined up today. And we also have a special guest interview that's going to be somewhere in the middle of this podcast. So stay tuned. We've got Hans Rey, hopefully chiming in with Stephane. He announced his retirement recently. Well, not retirement, his end of his sponsorship with GT after 30. How many years was it? 38 years?
38 years.
That's so long. Longest, arguably the I think it is the longest sponsorship in mountain biking.
Second longest sponsorship in sports, I think is what he said.
Yeah. Well, who's the first?
Steve Caballero with would be Birdhouse or Vans, I think.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Cab has the longest running. Maybe it's action sports, but honestly, it's kind of hard to imagine. Like, what other athlete? Like, I don't know any other sports, to be fair. So I don't really know.
Yeah,
he's been with him a long time.
Yeah, a long time. Yes. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
he's always been even before the kind of influencer culture became a thing. Hans Rey was always the ambassador that companies wanted to have. You know, he's for years and years he's had that binder of all the magazine covers he's ever been on, and I'm positive he has the record of the most magazine covers for any mountain biker. He just stacked them up, every single magazine that existed at that time, because he started in the 80s when that print media was how you got your name out there, and he did such a good job of self-promotion and traveling around the world and all that stuff. So we'll toss it over to Stephane now, and he's gonna talk to Hans, find out a little bit more about plans for the future, if he's got a new ride, and just some tales from the past. So toss you that. We'll be back in a second.
We're here with Hans Rey, who shared some pretty big news last week, departing from GT Bikes after 38 incredible years. So I guess first off, how are you feeling about it all?
Actually, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, it took a while, for everything to sink in, but, it is what it is. GT's taking a pause. They're winding the business completely down. And with that goes all the athletes, all the employees, everything. And, in the future, there may or may not be a restart for the brand. But in the meantime, everybody got their contract terminated, and so was mine. Most riders got their contracts not renewed at the end of last year when they first broke the news. But myself and a few other athletes still had contracts, and they honored them for the time being, until they liquidated the company, sold off the inventory, and that day has come.
Right. In your video, which is a great video, by the way, if anyone's listening and hasn't checked it out, they should go check it out on your YouTube page or Pinkbike. But you called it a fairy tale journey. What were some of the most kind of magical moments in those 38 years? I'm sure there's lots and lots to pick and choose from, but are there any kind of highlights with your time at GT?
Well, there was hundreds, thousands of highlights and experiences and trips and memories and photos, and all this stuff keeps popping up, and you go, oh my God. I mean, initially I thought I was 20 years old when I signed with GT, and I thought I'm going to do that for a couple of years and then go back to Germany and go to university, which I had put on hold, with its opportunity at hand. And so I always thought I'm going to do this 1 or 2 years and then do a real thing. And I managed to do this basically my whole life, never had a real job, never finished school. And, at the beginning, a highlight for me, like I said in the video, was I got to, even though I was never a BMXer, I followed BMX and freestyle guys in the magazines back in the 80s. And I got to meet all those guys and go on tour with them. And then over the years with Team GT, we traveled all the races and the World Cups, and then that all led eventually to the extreme biking videos and then the adventure team and so on. And I mean, there's so many moments and highlights that came out of each of those, from just like a little example, like going to Machu Picchu with your bike. I was always interested in these mystic places and mysterious places. And when I started the Hans Rey Adventure Team, I figured, hey, why not go there? I always wanted to check it out, and nobody's been there on a bike. And there was like thousands of opportunities like this.
Yeah, well, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty cool for me to get to chat to you because, I'm 31 years old, so you were with GT for 7 years longer than I've been around for. So it's pretty wild to think of how long that's been. I guess you hooked up with GT back in the 80s. Did you ever imagine it turning into a 38-year partnership, or like how did that come about? Like, it must have been just a crazy journey.
Yeah, of course. Nobody could have imagined that, not even 10 years, like you literally thought, okay, I'm going to do this for a year or 2 or 3. And it wasn't really a job at that point. Mountain biking hadn't exploded yet. I was just a trials rider, which was the smallest part of the whole mountain biking bundle, but staying over here and then seeing opportunities for helping the sponsors out, but it wasn't, I realized early on that it wasn't all about racing, that there was like a lot of people mountain biked and they were more into other things than stopwatches and Lycra and stuff. And I would have never thought in the wildest dreams that this would carry on for like 40 years. I mean,
yeah, it's incredible. The 38 years, it's amazing. And I think what was really cool for me when we published your video there was just seeing kind of like a huge outpour of a bunch of fans. Like, I think it had like 200 comments on the article almost, of just people that had really resonated with you over the years. So how was that to kind of, did you read through any of those comments, or was that pretty cool?
It was amazing, the outpour of the people. I'm really like humbled. And it was, there was like almost 200 comments on Pinkbike, but there was like even more on the YouTube channel and even more on Facebook and Instagram. And honestly, I haven't managed to read them all. I'm still gonna read them, but it's been just like really so many and only positive, and everybody has a story, and it's really nice. Feels nice to see how many lives were impacted by all this stuff. And to go back to your earlier question, we always thought, I'm going to do this for a couple of years. And then once I started turning early 30s, that was usually the age when a racer would retire. And then actually Ned Overend was the first racer who like kept racing and ended up even winning a World Cup still at 40, And I was like always thinking, there's no reason to retire. I feel better than ever actually in my 30s, Plus at that point already when I was in my early 30s, I kind of already, or just around then, I started to retire from mid 30s from competition and started doing the adventure team stuff. And that I figure, I can do that for a long time. I don't need to, like just because people say I should retire. And honestly, I was always curious, what is behind that next door, because the sport kept evolving. There was new opportunities and new things and new technologies. And the next thing is there's X Games, and okay, I'm going to do a couple more years. I want to be in the X Games. And the next thing is like adventure trips, or then e-bikes are coming, or then, the internet is blowing up. And there was always another door, and I still feel like this today. There's other doors that I'm pretty curious what's behind them. And so we'll see.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. I definitely want to get into a bit of what's next for Hans, but before that, you did mention GT is paused, and I think in your video and your article, you kind of alluded to maybe it's not a forever goodbye. Is there any kind of more info you can share on that, or is that kind of you're hopeful, or what's the deal there, the inside scoop?
Yeah, I'm pretty much just hopeful. Nobody really has the scoop. I think there was a business decision made on the high level, and that meant to pause the brand and really shut it down. It's a pity because we were actually on a really strong comeback. It wasn't so much a financial thing for us, GT. We were actually coming back really strong from years of kind of want to say we were slightly neglected there for a while, and we moved back to California. We had incredible new bikes ready to go. Like the 2 e-bikes, I was lucky to keep the prototypes. They are like really top-notch work, and we had other new bikes coming out, downhill bikes and analog bikes, and the lineup was amazing. So it's a bummer that the plug was pulled, but that's business, and companies die sometimes, just like people. I don't think GT is dead yet, and there was, they did say, they're not done with GT, but what that means is just speculation on anybody's part. Maybe even they don't know yet. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's definitely been a challenging time in the industry in general, and GT is not the only brand that's kind of had financial struggles recently. Yeah, so I guess kind of looking at your career and your legacy, like you said earlier, you've done it all: trials, free ride, adventure riding, media, charity work. It's quite the list. What are you most proud of when you look back on it today?
It is really cool to read all these comments, to have the respect, like I think at the end of the day, you can win championships, you can earn money, but the stuff that really lasts is the experiences from traveling, and also having respect from your peers. And I feel that love, and that's kind of nice to have. And it's, and it's nice, that I could inspire so many people to maybe take a chance and live their dreams in a way, whatever hobby it might be. It doesn't even have to be mountain biking. Sometimes you get inspired just by watching somebody, and so that's kind of the biggest reward for me, to be proud of what you've done or what I've done, and I mean the market constantly changes and still changes, and it's a different ball game now than it was back then, for any rider. And but there's still opportunities, and there's still people can have fun and and do their thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've obviously been all over the world and filmed over, ridden your bike in places a lot of people can only dream about. Are there any kind of like stories, or like maybe what was the sketchiest or most memorable location you've ever ridden your bike?
Yeah, well, the one story that always comes to mind was early on in the late 80s. This German filmmaker contacted me and said he's doing these videos on the active volcano in Hawaii, where the lava is literally flying through the air and pouring in the ocean, and and he made these sports videos, but he tried to ride a bike there, but he couldn't. He didn't have the skills to ride on the 1 day old lava, or even, and
yeah.
So he said, can I come with my bike and do this? They called it the dance on the volcano, where I would like ride at night, and the edge, there's literally hot lava would be flowing in the ocean. The ocean would be boiling. I would be on an edge that wasn't there 24 hours ago because it built up with new lava overnight.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would do I had 3 layers of clothes on because lava was exploding in itself and flying through the air. And I would do some tricks there, back wheel hops and front wheel hops or whatever, and ride through the screen and hop over some lava streams. So that was something that I will never forget. It was pretty crazy. And
no kidding. I was just gonna say I went to university for geology. So I actually did a field school on Hawaii's volcanoes, and went and checked it out. So I can't imagine, but it must have been hot. Hey,
it was
the next
super
day,
hot. That's
sure.
why I had all these layers of clothing on, and in case a rock would hit me, I would have a little protection. And there was one scene, the guy, he filmed it himself, but he rode in slow motion over a little lava stream, and then he endoed and crashed, but the front wheel got stuck in the lava, and then the tire exploded, and the front wheel starts melting away. It was a pretty cool shot. And it was for some German TV program, and I don't even think I have the footage of that. I
was gonna say that sounds awesome. I'd love to check that out if it exists on the internet.
I have some really bad photos, really grainy, with one of those little old cameras, almost unrecognizable. I have some photos, and I did another piece with that guy a few months later. I came back to Hawaii, and we did another kind of a lifestyle piece, and that I have on film, but it doesn't have the Riding on the Lava piece on it.
Okay, well, if anyone listening has a link to that, or finds it on the internet somewhere, send it our way, and we'd like to check it out.
I don't think there's a link. German TV, I think it was a new channel at the time called Premiere. I don't know.
Okay. You also did other kind of like TV shows, didn't you? Wasn't there some TV show you were in that was sort of like a LA cops, bike cops or something like that? What was that called?
That was called Pacific Blue. And that was kind of the Baywatch for bicycle riders, with the Santa Monica Bike Police. And I'd started out doing stunt work for them. And at the time I was actually quite busy in my career and other things. And I kind of just did it. But then this TV show was really cheesy, but it was really big too. It was in over 100 countries. And
wow.
I mean, to this day, I meet every month a few people who tell me, oh, Pacific Blue, because of that show, I started mountain biking. And then, so it inspired a lot of people and was actually a lot of exposure. And for me, kind of the nice part was I ended up getting to play myself in a few episodes after I did stunt work for them. They found a part in me in the film where I was the coach of the bike police guys. And we had some, they built me in the storyline, Hans Rey, the evil Eastern European bike coach or something.
That's awesome. I was going to ask if people still kind of recognize you from that, but that's you already answered that one. That is cool. Okay, what do you think like today's young riders could learn from the early freeride or adventure era? Like, what's some things that you would say passed down to some of the new riders coming up and trying to be a Hans Rey?
Well, I don't know. There's nothing new you can really say. The market is different. I mean, at the end of the day, I think what helped me with my longevity, I looked at it as a job, and I try to deliver value to my sponsors, like I knew it took more than just riding a bike, and I tried to find media opportunities. I tried to find exposure. I tried to have ideas. I tried to make everybody happy that worked with me, be it the sponsors or be it the media guys helping create stories that they can use, or be it for the fans putting on the trial shows or working with the event promoters and coming in and setting up a competition or doing a demo at a race. So I always try to be professional that way. And I guess there came a point in my life when I was like, I should really go back to school. If I don't go to school now, I probably never will go back. And that made me work maybe extra hard and try to be more professional. And then, like I said, I discovered a few new markets at the time that weren't really exploited yet, in terms of, I was one of the first guys to do videos, especially like action, extreme riding stuff, other than racing. And then I was, started with these adventure trips. So I try to be creative and always find like what is next or what could be fun always. It was always stuff that I wanted to be into it. And so that's why I never really looked at my job as a job, because I enjoyed doing it, and I'm not saying it was given to me on a silver platter, but I had fun doing it, and I had people who believed in me and my ideas, not always, but often enough that I managed to keep it going.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. You mentioned you were thinking about going to school. What would you have gone to school for? Was there anything that kind of interested you if the biking thing didn't work out?
Well, yeah, I was studying marketing, and so I had always an interest in marketing, and I think that helped me because I ultimately market myself, and I had kind of an understanding for marketing and PR and that sort of stuff. And I mean, ultimately, when I got first sponsored by GT, I also got sponsored by Swatch. And at the time, Swatch was kind of the Red Bull of action sports, like what, Red Bull came much later. And when Red Bull first started, they piggybacked off Swatch and always said, we want to be involved with your Swatch events, in all action sports, not just in mountain biking. But so when Swatch offered me a contract and they wanted me to go on tour with like Rodney Mullen and a bunch of skateboarders and Rob Roscoe and stuff, I used to do tours with, trial shows, and they would do their skateboard stuff or BMX stuff, the other guys. And I told Swatch, well, if you promise me an internship, like at Swatch, then I can afford to come back and stay in America and ride my bike, and I figured that would be good for my studies. And they were just like, yeah, we can do that. They didn't even know what I meant with an internship, and it never ended up happening. But with that confidence of them promising me an internship, which I figured would look really good on my resume moving forward in normal life, I decided to stay for a year. And out of 1 year became 2 and then 3 and so on. And I ended up working with Swatch for 20 years. And then at one point along the lines, they kind of bailed out of action sports, and that's when basically Red Bull took over, and then they took it on levels, of course, Red Bull that were way beyond Swatch, but Swatch sponsored all these extreme sports long before any other corporation wanted to have anything to do with us.
That's cool. Yeah, and they're definitely having a bit of a resurgence, I would say, with
they're coming back
Swatch
right now,
and they're definitely doing it again. So you mentioned off the top, you kind of alluded to what's next, and you said in your video you're not done yet. So what's next? What do you think is next?
Well, I'm not sure yet. I'm actually not in a hurry. I'm honestly, I'm ready for a change. I've been doing the job with creating content and all that for a long time. And I'm still going to do some film projects here and there, but I'm ready for a change, and I'm going to take a little time off right now this summer to see what the options are. But I like to become a little bit more of an ambassador, also off the bike, not just on the bike, where I depend on creating content and compete with with thousands of other guys who want to make a living with the sport now. There was a time there was like less than 5 guys in the world who tried to make a living other than racing, with a bike. And nowadays there must be like at least 5,000 people in the world who eating from that pie. That includes all the different subcultures of the sport, and even tour guides. A lot of them get sponsorships from bike companies and stuff, and they tap into the marketing budgets, and they are also they can be good brand representatives. So there's a lot of people trying to live off the sport, and I'm going to reinvent myself. I have a few ideas, and I want to do stuff with tourism. I want to keep doing e-bike stuff. I have some ideas for maybe an e-bike specific event. And cool. We'll see. I have a few irons in the fire, and I see which ones burn the hottest.
Nice. That's exciting. Have a couple brands reached out to try to get you on board with them already, or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a little bit. I haven't really looked at all for another bike brand. I know eventually I will need some up-to-date bikes. Right now I'm fine for the next year with what I have, and I might team up with another bike company, but that's not my primary goal, to find another bike sponsor. When the time comes, I'll figure that one out. But I wanna kind of structure my future a little different than depending on a bike sponsor necessarily. But of course, I will need eventually bikes, and But there's other ways to make things happen, and I'm kind of trying to feel that out right now and see if I can make it work.
Cool. Do you think you'll ever kind of fully retire, or will you be riding bikes into the sunset?
I think, it's a lifestyle. It's kind of part of my identity, it crossed my thought that should I retire, but I have fun with it, and I have a few ideas, and I don't know what the heck I would do with myself if I don't have, it's because it's more than a job, So I'll keep doing it and trying to reinvent new ways, and maybe along the way inspire others to do similar things too. And we'll keep it going and make that bike riding thing a real job for everybody, not just a 5-year thing, which it is for most people.
Yeah, well, it's a fun industry to be in for sure. I guess the tippy joke is you can make literally hundreds of dollars as a mountain biker, but I think nowadays there's definitely, well, maybe these days it's a bit tougher, but it's cool that people can, so many people can be employed by the bike industry and make a career out of it, whether it be working for a brand or rider or guide, like you said. And it's a pretty great community.
Lifestyle,
I guess
you're buying into.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I bought into it. Yeah.
So many millionaires, so many millionaires, they wanna have that lifestyle, so it's not really, and we have that. So as long as you can afford to do it, then you're winning.
Absolutely. I got one final thought for you. You've seen every trend come and go pretty much in the bike world. Are there any trends that you miss? And any trends do you think you wish would go away again?
You mean trends that I missed that I didn't jump on?
Just like, I guess more like, MTB trends. Are there any trends that you thought were cool at the time and you wish they'd come back and they've gone out of style? Or maybe are there any things you're like super excited about coming up? Maybe e-bikes or other technology, kind of like.
Well, a lot of cool things came and went, and the ones that went is usually something that didn't work out, but you have to try those things out sometimes. You learn from that, and one thing leads to another. Sometimes also the timing was wrong with certain ideas or events, and you had the ideas like 10 years too early and couldn't really sell it to anybody or couldn't get momentum, But it's kind of cool to be part of this evolution. And if you're part of that, you need to be willing to try out some unusual ways and things, and not everything sticks that you throw at the wall, So I think there's a huge future with the whole e-bike thing, and actually getting the e-bikes smaller and getting them more efficient and more bicycle-like. And I think once we manage to draw that line between the motorcycle and the wheel class 1 pedal assist e-bikes, that are really more like a bicycle than a motorcycle, then there will be so many opportunities, innovative. Right now, most manufacturers they want to have the most powerful e-bike motor, but there's so much other fields where we can be innovative and make the bikes lighter and the range longer and the design cooler and all that stuff, So I think the e-bike thing will offer a bunch of opportunities, not just technology-wise, but also the way we're using them and events. I think there's a huge void still for the perfect e-bike event, that hasn't really been, I think, discovered. Because I don't think it's necessarily out pedaling a motor in an e-bike cross-country race. That's kind of against the philosophy of e-bike, which should be fun and easier to do. And I mean, talk to Peter Sagan or Julian Absalon. They say the hardest race they've ever done in their life was an e-bike race.
Really?
Anyway, but I think there's potential in e-bikes, and the sport will just grow, and there will be more subcultures. And I think there will be something for everybody, and hopefully a niche for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat to you, and just a huge congrats on the 38 years. And I know myself and everyone at Pinkbike, and clearly lots of people in the mountain bike community are going to be eager to see what you get up to next.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks you guys at Pinkbike for your support and what you do for the sport. And we'll keep you posted. And one of these days we can talk about all the hundreds of teammates that were on GT over the years, between mountain biking and BMX. There's a lot of stories that need to be told one day, but that's for another time.
I'd love to do that. We'll definitely have to queue that up. All right. Thank you.
And we've got a good show lined up. Some interesting, we did a little poll this week that had some topics about trends in mountain biking. We're going to discuss the latest trends, and we got a World Cup coming up, so talk about that with some show and tell, the usual things. Start with you, Dario. What do you got for show and tell this week?
Ooh, show and tell this week. Man, I got a really good one next week, but this week's I think is going to be. I'm going to talk about the Öhlins RXF36. The fork that I'm testing. I'm doing like a all mountain fork group test, and that has been the most surprisingly impressive so far. My only experience with like the Öhlins forks had been with the RXF38, and this is like the first of their Mark III product, which is the stuff released under the Brembo banner, and it is quite good. Like definitely an evolved version of a similar feel, but it's just like a cleaner, tighter, better version of itself, and it works really well.
Did they update the air spring on that? Is that the main
change?
Air
spring is like, I'd say the most noticeable change is it's just more sensitive off the top than the prior. I think the Öhlins stuff has always been really good at building support and like being tunable, but it wasn't always the most sensitive, and this is like perhaps the most sensitive fork of that sort that I've ridden. So it's like it's doing a really good thing there, and then it has the 2-chamber like controllable 2-chamber air spring, so a lot to play with in terms of setup there. But if that's something that people are inclined to do, it is really sick. So
nice.
Been enjoying that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, they've kind of in the past, I feel like Öhlins always went a little bit harder on the compression damping, just have that firmer, racier feel. But it's nice to have that. If you can get both, if you can get that soft off the top and then have the support, that's kind
and
of,
you can still set it up for that like firmer through A through Z of stroke if you want, but it's also really easy to get it like to ramp instantly without affecting that top end of travel. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah,
cool. Matt, you've got some show and tell today too. Yours is a follow up to another recent thing we were talking about. Get some new Shimano bits.
Yeah, new Shimano wireless, both the XT and, surprise, the Dior as well.
No SLX. Where's SLX?
No SLX.
SLX. It's not even on their website anymore.
No.
Yeah. Got sliced.
Okay.
So yeah, XT 8200 Di2 and the Dior. The XT comes in like a full group set, so you get drivetrain, wheels, and that doesn't include the chain. The chain is existing, I believe. But
and
the
brakes
Dior
are included, right?
Sorry, brakes. That's the other part I meant to mention. So they follow everything kind of looks like the XTR architecture. So you get the new lever shape, you get aluminum wheels, and the shifter and derailleur look very much like the XTR. Obviously, they're a little bit heavier. Performance is not quite per se up to the XTR level, we'll say. And then the Dior is just the derailleur and shifter. And all of these components for the drivetrain can use the pre-existing or like the older 12-speed chains and cassettes.
Which I'd say I kind of like that part about the way they've rolled this out. It is kind of nice for it's almost more of an upgrade path rather than needing to get a whole new drivetrain, where I think where SRAM came out with transmission, like what they've done with transmission is impressive. The kind of an interesting new design, but you have to buy everything different, and there's not a lot of cross compatibility. Where with the Shimano stuff, it is kind of nice that you can just get it and run your old cassette if you wanted to, and chain and existing parts. Which I like that. Just less waste, really.
Yeah, and it comes in a package like the XT drivetrain. I believe is $860 US, and then they call it sort of like more like an upgrade kit. So if you want to go, say, from Dior mechanical to Dior wireless, you can do that with just the derailleur and the shifter now.
Are there Dior brakes or none?
Not new ones at this time.
Okay.
How much is the Dior wireless derailleur?
Just the derailleur itself is $435, and then the shifter is $140.
So much money. Remember Dior? I think a Dior derailleur costs $50 for the cabled version, and I'm sure the shifter's $30 ish. So for $100, you can get the moving bits of your drivetrain, or you could spend
or 6 times that.
Yeah, don't think it's worth it. You have to really hate cables, or really.
I mean, cables and housing can be absurdly expensive if you
That's
just walk
true.
into a bike shop, but
true.
it's not
But
it's
not
not
$100
$500.
a foot.
No, it should be like $2 to $4 a foot, depending on how nice you are to
Yeah.
the person behind the counter. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that it trickled down this fast. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
neat because we will see it on more not entry level, but more mid level bikes rather than it just being reserved for the highest Shimano bikes. And I think that, I'd say I'm ambivalent to wireless shifting, sort of. Like I don't mind either way, but I think there's a decently large part of the mountain bike population that wants wireless shifting because it is kind of interesting and neat and theoretically less maintenance when it comes to the cable and housing bit of it. So
For sure. It'll be interesting to see if that stays as the entry level sort of mountain bike 1x12 speed drivetrain. Like, are you going to have to buy Dior from Shimano to get a 1x drivetrain? I guess anyways, it'll be a 1x, but like, will people opt for like an 11 speed
cable actuated thing?
Yeah.
I would assume the cable actuated stuff stays. It's like, I mean, as we were just saying, it's so much cheaper that if you're a product manager trying to build a really good budget bike, like you are still going to spec cable actuated Dior because it's
and they have their
one-sixth
Qs
the price.
and the Q stuff too, which is even below Dior. Like that just came out last year. So I think Shimano, they haven't painted themselves in a corner, but they've painted themselves an interesting room as far as like their product lineup is confusing if you don't know it. It's really, it got a lot of good stuff in it. You know, they have their link glide system, which is kind of the overbuilt, more durable stuff, kind of designed for e-bikes or people that just don't want to have to go through chains all the time. And then they've got the Qs, but then there's Qs link glide. Like you almost need a full spreadsheet just to understand it for the and like if I'm not confused, I wouldn't say, but it definitely takes me a couple of minutes to think about it. And if that's the case for me, someone that's just dabbling in the sport is going to be pretty overwhelmed. So I feel like they could kind of streamline it. They've got all the right pieces in their puzzle now. They just have to kind of make it let people know how it all fits together.
I mean, I think as always, like the weak point ends up being marketing with some of their lineup. It's like the link glide stuff, for instance, I think is phenomenal. Like it shifts perfectly under load. It is really robust, not too expensive, and not obscenely heavy. And it hasn't really penetrated the aftermarket, where I think like most people who are like just trying to have like a good performance bike should probably run something like that. Like,
they almost could have call it XT Burley or something, you know, it's just almost
I know, give it a slightly more catchy name.
But there's two sides of the coin, because they have Shimano's always kind of almost their naming scheme is towards the more practical, pragmatic, looks like a file name, and then you have SRAM, and they just make everything ultimate deluxe. And then like I'm working, I guess my show and tell this week could be I'm wrapping up a review of the SRAM Maven base brakes, which the reviews on the site by the time you listen to this. If it's not up, it's coming soon. But if you look at the SRAM Maven lineup now, they have ultimate, silver, bronze, and then base. The base brakes actually cost more than the bronze. The silver brakes, just a little bit, like $15. The silver brakes are actually black in color. Like it doesn't really make sense. I get kind of what they're trying to do, but you're combining when you have ultimate's not the top. Like gold should be the top if you're doing gold, silver, bronze. But then you stick base in there. It's very confusing.
Yeah. As before, it's an adjective, an element, an alloy, and a noun.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's marketing departments. And I know they have big meetings where they try to think of naming, you know, whether you name it, like their suspension goes ultimate, select, plus select, which is kind of better, but I don't know. But
I don't know. It's easy enough to memorize. My thing is more like some of the bloated lineups, like I think Shimano's drivetrain offerings is a bit overly complicated.
Yeah.
It just does a disservice if you're trying to, like, sure, in the OE world, like those people just live and breathe that understanding. But I think if you're trying to get aftermarket sales, like you got to keep it easy for people to know what's going on. You know, it's hard.
Yeah. It's tricky. But for the Maven base, which I feel like I've talked about them maybe on the podcast a little bit before, but I'll kind of go over my more final thoughts on them. I'll say they're the best Maven brake out of the lineup. They're the best Mavens. Yeah.
Wow.
They're the $200 a set. And it's all because of the lever action feel. Like there's been so many kind of hand-wringing YouTube videos and articles and things about how hard it is to pull Maven brakes, which I do think that the first sets that came out, the initial kind of media samples did have some issues, you know, like whether that was the caliper seals, they were a bit harder to pull at the lever. And they still are harder to pull than other options out there. Like, I don't want to deny that, but I don't think it's something that's going to give you like finger cramps or anything. Because I've probably been on, I don't know, 8 pairs of Mavens by now, and the levers, they're a little bit stiffer than code, but they're not crazy. But that's all. Like them. Yeah, they're a good brake. They're not my favorite, but they're good. But these, the Maven base, are better by a large margin because of that light lever action. It uses their direct link design, so it doesn't have the cam that the other Mavens have, which they call that swing link. So swing link is designed so that as you squeeze the lever, you get more power later in the stroke, kind of designed to improve the modulation, where these ones are just a more linear action. So you squeeze the lever, you get the power, and then the power just stays the whole way. But it's so much lighter at the lever. It's, I don't know the actual leverage number, but it's,
yeah, having like felt them, it is like pretty profound.
Yeah, say that if you called them regular Mavens like a 2-to-1, these would be like a 8-to-1 or something. It's like that dramatic of a difference.
And you still feel like they get the same power at the end, or like
for sure, the same power. Like the Maven base brakes use an 18 mil piston and a 19 point. No,
I think it's two 18s instead of an 18 and a 19.5.
Yeah, so you have one that's a little bit less, but because of the way the power comes on, because of that direct link, it feels the same. Like, I don't think you would.
Yeah. It probably is like on a dyno less power, but functionally it's like still.
I don't think you're skidding brake. By the time you hit you'll skid. Your skid point's going to be here, and then the power difference is going to happen after the skid point. So yeah, they've been great, super consistent, and they're the ones I'd recommend. So I was like, I want to try Maven brake. So I get the Maven base just because they feel a lot better. And I think that, the only downside potentially, it doesn't use, like, if you want the actual ultimate brake that has a cartridge bearing in the lever pivot, these ones use the bushing, but so far it's fine. Like, there's not a ton of extra play or anything. It would be neat to have the pad contact adjust on these, make like an ultimate base, like the ultimate base brake to make things more confusing.
My ultimate base.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that
pillow fort.
And I've heard rumors that this could be you might see higher end SRAM.
I like the direction it goes.
Yeah, that's this cool. Is like, I think they, not accidentally, but they made a set of brakes. They said, oh, these actually feel really, really good. So they might help address some of the complaints that people had with regular Mavens. But yeah, that's my show and tell. Very strong brakes, light action, not crazy expensive. They're even kind of cheaper than TRPs, I think. $200.
Yeah, about
205. It's in that. So worth checking out.
Is it a set or per wheel?
Per wheel.
200.
Yeah.
200 per wheel. Okay. Yeah, it's about like last gen DHR.
Yeah.
Price.
So it's
I have a follow up show and tell that is brake related. I put TRP blue resin pads and TRP rotors in the new XTR brakes, and they are better.
Oh, interesting. And that Surratt replaced the metallic pads?
Correct. Yeah. They're a little bitier. So like you can feather and get some power out of them, as opposed to having to like pull into the, pull into the belly of the power band, if you will.
Is that the thicker rotor too you put on?
It is a thicker rotor. So just, to be cautious with like where your pistons sit. But I mean, they're not like night and day different, but I kind of prefer the feel, plus the pads don't rattle. So
almost like we could do a brake shootout.
Almost like shootout. That's a great idea, Matt.
After that,
could do that.
You got really into brake talk.
And,
we're really getting into it. We're warming up.
Yeah, we're
getting. Stay tuned.
Yeah. But speaking of brake talk and trends and things, I think that's the thing we wanted to talk about this week. Is last week Matt wrote a poll that was basically laid out all the different trendy mountain bike products that we're kind of seeing this year and last year. Things like radial tires and extra weight on your frame, short cranks, gearboxes, and so, the premise was, which of these do you want to try? And then which ones of these have you tried? Because, some people have been some people are on trend ahead of others. I just kind of wanted to dive into that and see what trendy things you guys are enjoying and what things you think might be more hype than not. And, I want to start with just going over the results of the ones
I need to look at the poll.
Yeah, the ones that readers have, things that readers are currently using and enjoying. It looked like high-rise bars, short stems, short cranks were the ones that more of the Pinkbike readers are kind of doing, and also 220 mil rotors, which makes sense. Those things they're not kind of the brand new trends, but over the last,
right.
It also depends how long, what you call a short stem. I think, I've been running a 40 mil stem for, I don't know, 15 years now, or no more than that, a long time, forever, but then there's also the trend of really short stems, and with a lot of like Dario's, you have the special 15 mil stem with 90 mil
thing underneath do.
Yeah.
We're talking super short, like 25 or less.
Yeah. So is there anything on the trends that you guys don't like, that you wouldn't put on your own bike?
A water dripping brake cooling setup is something I will never run on my personal bike.
No, I can picture you being the guy with it. I don't know why.
Thank
you. Is Dario rolling up to?
No, we have like long, steep descents here where you can actually cook brakes, but I am not a high performance enough rider to require that. I'll just stop.
It'd be so cool to listen. You could hear this, like the sizzle of it, like no steam would be coming behind you.
I mean, we do have a good trail here that like you pick up some pretty good brake heat, and then you cross a stream at the bottom, and it is such a satisfying sound. Like,
I'm always ready for things to go. I just worry that the rotors will just turn into warped.
For sure. I mean, like, that's like a pretty aggressive temp change, but I probably will not be running a mass damper on a personal bike at any point.
I'm curious,
especially based on like Seb and Jesse's like feedback on that. It just doesn't sound like it's an appreciable enough change for me. What else? We've got like a lot of things that I think are cool but not critical, is maybe how I'd put it. Like, I kind of feel like short cranks make sense on some bikes. Rotor covers are like probably just for racing. I don't see that being like a super useful thing for going on a daily bike ride.
I don't think most people don't have too much issue with the amount of
magnetic pedals. I have done and dusted. I'm good on that. Matt also tried that. We've all tried them, I think.
The magnetic pedals,
yeah.
I put those to rest. Not for me.
Yeah. It's cool that there are edge cases that they help solve, but
it was sweet. I think we'll say about that review. It's cool that they have kind of found a use for in the adaptive world. People that have trouble, they can't really clip in that well, but also flat pedals are not secure enough. It's really neat that that's a good spot for it. And like, I think there's a place for those pedals, but I think for us, we've come to realize they don't quite work for us, but it's good.
And again, it's not like awful. It's just not my favorite thing. I've got like two other options that work well for me, but I'd say data acquisition is a funny one. It's like, again, I think probably more of a racing application. Like, if we were able to see data ac get like cheap and easy to implement, then I would run it on a bike more.
Kind of like Shockways had a lot of potential. I almost feel like they made it so simple, and it almost like didn't do enough. It ended up just being a way to check your sag.
If you could integrate like position sensitivity into that, like knowing dynamic sag, that would be sick. Because really, for me, like having tried out the BYB kit, the most impressive thing I got out of it was like seeing sag numbers at the bottom of a run and like how you actually settled out front to rear balance. Like, that's what's useful in it. I don't really care about the like wheel speeds and all of the like damper changes you can get out of that, because those are things you can intuit with bracketing, but like setting sag that way is cool.
I mean, Shockways does that, but it's just based on the air pressure. So I think there's room for a different, like a more refined version with maybe like a few different menu options to kind of dig in. But I think it's interesting that data acquisition I understand the appeal for it, but it's also, I think there's not a user friendly enough system out there where you either have to pay a lot of money and kind of get fully lost in the sauce, or it's just really basic and you don't get as much out of it.
It's a lot to digest.
Yeah, for sure.
The built-in a lot to get wrong.
You don't know. You could chase a rabbit down the completely wrong path with that stuff. A lot of people do. The Mondraker integrated one that they'd had a couple years back, I thought was pretty cool, but had some flaws in terms of like how nature would impact it. But like, basically, it was like a laser read on the frame, right? And so it had like a built-in, simple data ac system that you could use to get sag and stuff like that. But I think mud and water and stuff like that would kind of interfere with your data stream. But
cool. Sure. I think it's going somewhere. I think we'll see more of that. Like, definitely on the racing side, it's pretty much everywhere. But I'll be curious to see if we see any kind of more consumer-based items come up. But I think it's a trend, but not necessarily the thing you need to go out and buy immediately to have a better experience on your bike.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've still never seen a person just going on a bike ride with it, like, which I think indicates like it's not like hasn't permeated the consumer market, you know?
Yeah. I mean, most people just want to go have fun and not do like back to back runs of their local little thing, which is fun to do sometimes, but it's also fun just to go on big rides and not have to worry about fussy little electronics.
Yeah. What else we got in here?
Trends. We had
putting extra weight on your frame. I don't feel is necessary for me at this point. I'm trying to make my bikes lighter. So
yeah, but on the downhill bike, I think that's one of the cooler things with that Orbea. I think it's pretty neat that it actually comes for the consumer to strap that on or bolt it on. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. A lot of people say how much they enjoy riding e-bikes downhill because they feel so secure.
Yeah, that's fair.
Exactly where how that bike it's kind of how that development was made, or that link, I guess.
Yeah.
That link quite literally. But yeah, that's something people could play with at home without necessarily having that bike as their base bike. But like, I think there's a limit, and there's definitely an application for it. It's not going to be, you're not going to see XC racers putting 500 grams on the bottom of their bike. But
I just had the best intrusive thought.
You are going to do that, aren't you?
Yeah.
No, it's way better than that. I don't think I should reveal it here. I'm just going to do it.
Save it.
Let me think let me see if I've thought of your intrusive thought. Does the stab Remo
does have a water bottle mount on the bottom, but no, it's not about the stab.
Because that's what you could do with
honestly, I'll just say it here, and then I'm going to try to get it out by Thursday when the podcast comes out, even though I have so much other stuff to do. I'm going to try to build a little container on the bottom of one of my bikes that I can fill with dirt and water at the top of a run. So it's like a very lightweight climbing thing that doesn't weigh you down. And then I'm going to pack it with shit and try to make it as heavy as possible. So it's like a
swap box, but for weight. Like you can
exactly.
Scoop.
Yeah. I think I could mount it to like a bash guard mount.
Oh yeah.
You could just zip tie an empty water bottle to your down tube.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I'll have to see how heavy that is, because Jackson was running like, I think it was close to like 5 pounds of weight. Yeah, it was like a kind of a tremendous amount. So I'm not going to hit that necessarily, but
this is when we had that talk going around a while ago about tungsten cubes. This is when the tungsten cube comes into play. We can. I don't know how you just stash them out in the woods.
Okay, well, so like where I used to live, you have to ride with a bell downhill for hikers, and they'd have like bell boxes at the top of certain popular downhill runs where you'd grab one if you'd forgotten yours or something. You could have a similar system where there's a group of volunteers that brings tungsten cubes to the top of the mountain.
Just like little Sherpas, they have tiny backpacks.
Leaves it there. Yeah. They're like the fittest guys in town because they're constantly carrying like 60 pounds of tungsten up the mountain.
Yeah.
And then you hopefully like deposit it somewhere at the bottom because it's extremely expensive. But something similar to that essentially is what I'm going to prototype.
Yeah.
You could have like a group of users where like the e-bikers who want a light bike descending could like leave their dead battery at the top.
Oh yeah.
And then downhillers could ride the dead one down.
Yeah. It's a whole like nice symbiotic relationship.
It's a beautiful ecosystem. It's
gonna be really nice.
Interesting.
Cool. This is gonna be a great trail system. Our bike park is gonna be special when we start our own bike park. It's gonna be
the Pinkbike bike park is just a nightmare. It's so complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Let's see what else on the trend. We got that trend sorted out. We also have I guess like high-rise bars. I feel like all of us are on higher-rise bars than we were, say, 5 years ago. Is that the case? How about you, Matt? Let's hear bar.
Yeah, I'm still like at 35, and it depends on the size of the frame. I think there's a whole whack of factors that go into that. So it's not necessarily like a one and done type of component swap.
Yeah,
it can mess up a bunch of other things.
Yeah,
but I would say generally higher than in the past. Yeah,
same. Yeah.
I think it used to be 30s were normal, and then 40s started coming. Now it's like, oh, I really like the 40s.
They also look better. I feel like
they look so much better.
Short.
Yeah.
Get higher rise bars.
Yeah.
The NorCal high rise. Slam the stem as high as you can get up front. Like there was a moment where like people went a little extreme with it, but we're kind of normalizing on like maybe 40s to 50s looking appropriate and feeling appropriate. Yeah, I've definitely I've gone up a little bit. I think it helps that bikes have gotten more proportional. So like, even though stack heights have gotten taller and reaches have gotten longer, I feel like you can then actually put a higher bar because there's like more rider area as opposed to like a shorter bike. Putting a high rise bar makes it feel even goofier because you're kind of just like standing on a scooter.
Yeah, longer chain stay and everything else.
Yeah. There's like more room. Like you look at how Jackson has his bike set up, like unusual use case as one of the best bike riders in the world, but like he's on like a size large V10 with like super high rise bars rolled way forward to get like even more. It looks like a kid riding his dad's bike. It's wild, but like I think that's a testament to like how big you can get it, and like Jesse May's poll kind of confirms that. Yeah, it's cool to see the like evolution there.
Yeah, good. I know. I'm glad we're well past the days of flat bars for downhill bikes. That trend was so strange. When I was trying to get as low as possible, I never quite understood that because it happened. I mean, to go way back in 98, 99, it was when riser bars were a big thing in mountain bikes. People were like, "Oh, we need to rise." Maybe a little earlier, 90, around there, 98, where they didn't even exist, and then you put like a 10 mil rise, and that was a big deal. Like, whoa, riser bars, and that the whole thing, and that was the death of bar ends, because with the riser bar, you didn't need bar ends anymore because you could have this magical climbing position. The marketing around it was amazing, but yeah, I mean,
I love it.
These are the old timey tales, but yeah, like bar ends were a thing because bars were flat and short, and you just wanted that other position. But then they got riser bars, and it was the magic. But yeah, it's pretty. I remember I had a set of riser bars on a 99 Kona Explosive. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And it came spec with those. I was like, oh, this is the best bike ever. This is an XC bike, but I thought it was for free riding.
I have the dealer book PDF open for that 99 Kona Explosive right now because it's in the same catalog as the Stab Deluxe.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Like it's literally the tab underneath the podcast tab.
I have 1999
Kona catalog. Do you really?
At home, yeah, because I had a 99 Mooney Mula.
Oh yeah,
nice. No way.
That was my first like legit mountain bike, and a 99 Stab, the shorter travel one. Later.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah,
that's sweet.
Dating myself, but it was funny. Like, I think high rise bars were trending back then because stems were so long. People wanted to descend without being pitched over the front, and then as we got to like 2010 era, the flat bar was popular because downhill riders were going super fast, hitting steeper tracks and whatever, and then they needed more stability, so they wanted to lower their center of gravity, and then somebody had the brilliant idea to make the wheels bigger and the frames longer, and to kind of keep that fit for the rider on that same size cockpit area, we'll say, for that size of a wheelbase that they've now grown to. Higher rise bars are coming back.
Yeah, it all comes in a circle. The whole thing, it's different but the same all the time, which is good.
Yeah,
I guess that'll be we didn't really mention on your trendy products poll, there were no bigger wheels.
No,
I think we won't talk about them too much in this podcast, but I think maybe next week we'll do maybe a little Eurobike preview because Eurobike's coming up. We're gonna have some editors at Eurobike, and based on the press releases that are coming into my mailbox, there's definitely a handful of companies with 32-inch wheel, at least 32-inch wheels and tires. Not as many bikes, but there are definitely some bikes being teased.
Again, it's like not the biggest.
There's a full suspension one I saw a glimpse of that, but no huge, like no major companies yet. But it's starting to, gain momentum in some regard. Which, I mean, we'll see where it goes. I don't want to. We can open that can of worms again. We've done 32-inch wheel podcasts before, but we can do another one at some point. It's something.
Yeah.
It is something.
Yeah. I don't know. We're kind of, I don't want to even dig into it right now. It'll be a thing in the future, maybe.
Producer Eric, I'm curious. Have you taken a look at this poll on the site of the trend things? I'm curious, like your, like if you had to choose like two things to try out of it.
Yeah, I think on my end, I mean, one thing I have tried is some radial tires. Thanks, Matt. Those have been really nice. I was actually genuinely surprised. I've been running like Exo Plus and Double Down equivalent front and rear with Cushcore for the last like 3 years. And switching to the radials has felt like not noticeable, but in a good way. Like I pulled out the Cush core, I'm running 5 psi higher than I was before, and I feel like I have the same traction, same like rim protection, but my bike just feels lighter and honestly better traction there. Otherwise, in terms of other ones I want to try, I'm really curious to try Gearbox, the belt drive, to be honest. I don't know how much I'd want it for like all the time pedaling, but it just seems so different that I want to try it from that perspective. And then I think the other ones I'd say definitely a chain damping device like an O-Train or O-Chain. My main bike right now is a single pivot Meta, so I feel like it does have quite a bit of feedback, so it'll be interesting to try changing something up there. And maybe also some higher rise bars. I thought I had high enough rise bars, and then now that I'm hearing everyone talking about them, I'm like, well, maybe it would feel even better higher.
Yeah, we'll get you on trend.
Yeah. I was riding this weekend on some pretty steep trails, and I definitely noticed like myself hanging off the back a bit more than I was, or at least than I thought I used to, especially since I've been riding the downhill bike, which does have a higher rise than my enduro. And yeah, it kind of made me notice that like maybe some higher rise bars would feel better there, get me weighted on the front again more. So
yeah, that stuff's good. It's nice because you can, I mean, those are the things that are nice. They're not super expensive to experiment with. I mean, kind of radial tires are kind of expensive, but the things like that are nice. The Gearbox bike is obviously an expensive experiment.
Expensive, yeah.
The ones that make a difference. It's cool when you find something that doesn't cost a lot of money and then makes a noticeable difference. Those are kind of the best options out there.
One other thing, actually, now that I think about it, looking at I guess trendy things to try. One that I've actually kind of been using without realizing it is I guess I've been on the French suspension for a while. I kind of just, when I got this bike, I played with the suspension a bunch, kept removing the rebound, and then eventually realized one day that I was like, I'm basically running my suspension wide open, and it feels awesome.
Yeah.
It works. It works for certain applications. I would argue that I'm on that train, but I went to Interior this weekend to ride some bigger jump stuff, and it took some adjustment. Like I kind of had to like dial it back and literally dial back the rebound a bit. I was like, oh, it works. I can get it done, but it feels a little precarious. I was like moving around a bit too much. So,
it also depends so much on like the stock tune and what you've got on your bike. Like I have a fork right now. Like I'd say similarly, like I tend towards a lot faster than recommended. And I am currently riding a fork. I'm one click from closed on one of the rebound circuits.
Okay.
And like that's not only comfortable, but like what is rideable fast. Like you could ride it wide open, but it would hurt. Or it would just like do bad things. So I think like stock tunes matter a lot.
And sorry, where were you on like pressures for that? You said close to recommended, or
yeah. Something I can't dive into too much yet, but it's like an interesting conundrum on that front because conflicts with how I typically tune that.
And it's always interesting because I'd say my suspension settings tend to be more middle of the road. Like I'm not super fast rebound. I'd say pretty average. If someone hops on my bike, it's pretty rideable. It doesn't feel too out of the ordinary, but it is funny how when someone does something different, if it works for them, they're convinced it's there's a tendency that sometimes someone does that and decides it's what everyone needs to do. And if you're doing it that way, it's like, well, it depends what's comfortable for you. Like I can ride a bike with my rebound all the way open, but it's not as enjoyable. So I'll set it kind of more to my preference, but that's why there's dials. But it is cool. It's interesting to see what racers are doing. We've noticed like Loic, his suspension looks fairly soft. And I guess Henry did that deep dive on his bike last year, kind of figuring out what his suspension settings are. And, it would be kind of neat if you could get all the World Cup racers bikes in a lineup and even just do a small little lap just to kind of bounce on them and see the differences and how it's set up, because everyone's got their own theory on what helps them go fast.
Yeah, if you could have like some device that took everyone's bike and just hit it with an equal force at one wheel, and you're like, oh, that's really fast. Oh, that's moderate.
Yeah.
Well, that's heavy damping, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously it all depends on the rider size and, their there's so many other factors going into it besides just a blanket statement like let all the air out, take all your tokens out, speed up the rebound, and you're dialed. But, it is interesting to see because it wasn't that long ago where it was kind of like the Gwyn suspension was the trend where it's just make it rock solid, set it up like you're doing slope style, and just hang on. It's kind of like a holdover from the from his moto days, I think, was how he explained why he liked it like that. And that doesn't seem like it says their setups aren't as ridiculous as they were back then, I think.
You don't have to compromise as much anymore either. Like, I think he set his stuff up that way because he needed it for like the big hit, you know, like survive through the chatter, survive through all the medium-sized stuff, and then hit something as hard as you can. But like now you can have something that works pretty well in all of those circumstances.
Yeah,
you know, I think that's
hydraulic bottom outs and different, even just the damping itself.
Yeah, and going back to the size of the bikes, it'd be interesting to get somebody like Aaron Gwynn to jump back on his old bike and see how that's stacked up now.
Yeah.
Well, now that he's running Olin stuff too, I think like their general tuning philosophy does kind of err towards that like softer, more compliant end of things. And like looking at his bike, it's not like as dramatic as Loic's, even though they kind of have a similar ride style, but it's erring that way. So I'm sure that like the brand you're on does influence things to some degree.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm sure we'll have some more trends in the future. Maybe next year we'll have to do another trend podcast and see which one of these has stuck around and which ones we've adopted and which ones we just forgot about. Yeah. I guess now we can dive into some reader questions. We got some that came in, Eric. And as always, if you look at the show description, go to the link and you can chime in on that SpeakPipe app. You can leave us a voice message. We like hearing your voices and trying to answer your funny questions. And you can always also put them in the comments too. We do know how to read.
Speak for yourself.
I know, sometimes.
Hi, Mike. I was just wondering, after you ride an awesome trail with your friend, do you prefer to high five, fist bump, or just keep to yourself?
That's a very specific question.
Mike doesn't do those.
No, I think
you're not a high fiver.
No, I think at the last one, he said the last one was to keep to myself. I think I keep to myself. Yeah, I don't really high five or fist bump. Maybe it's my like East Coast roots, a little bit more stoic, but I don't tend to. All my emotions are hidden deep inside. I do have emotions; they're just like buried deep. So yeah, I'm not Mr. Fist Bump or high five. I mean, I don't mind them if someone wants to high five because we had a good lap. I'll high five, but I don't tend to have outward displays of emotion like that. I'm more robot than.
We were joking with all the with the playoffs going on in the NHL. We were like, the new thing should be like the head bonk, just like bonk each other with helmets on.
Yeah. Just smash.
I like a little gentle kiss on the cheek,
Oh yeah, just like the French way. Like a little,
we
can try that.
Beautiful trail.
Yeah. Yeah, we could probably invent some new thing. But yeah, so that person didn't say their name, but yeah, I don't really do anything. I just say good ride or something. It's all in my head though. It's really good. I'm jumping up and down and shooting out fireworks and stuff. Yeah. All right. Let's see what we got next. Deep questions.
Hey guys, calling from Sweden. Looking for advice on some drivetrain stuff. Running a Trek Slash right now, Gen 5, so no idler pulleys or anything. I run a Shimano Dior crankset in the front, 32th, and a 12-speed GX in the rear. I'm looking to go 11-speed, 1146 maybe, because I want a compact system, but I do not really understand the long cage, short cage stuff. So what's the most compact and cheap and reliable Shimano system I can get 11-speed? Nothing fancy. I shift like a maniac, and I do not see myself getting any better. Also, what's your favorite trick on a bike? Mine is tabletops, 1-foot tabletops in combination with the Rise Against and tank tops. What's yours?
Hell yeah.
That's a pretty good trick.
The Shimano 11-speed Shadow derailleur goes up to a 46, I think, and you could run it with one of those E13 cassettes, and you'd get like a pretty wide range.
Well, he said he wants 1146. He can just do the 11-speed link glide. They make it 1146.
That too, yeah.
So that'd be just a new. It's an XT link glide. Yeah, and that's a
XT
medium
mechanical.
Cage. Yep, XT mechanical. Then he was asking about the different cages. If you look at Shimano's website, it'll show you the max tooth count that can go through that derailleur. So that's why you have to go with a smaller cassette with the medium cage, because otherwise it wouldn't be able to get the chain to those easiest gears. So yeah, you're looking for, like we were talking about before, XT link glide is your solution, I think. Medium cage derailleur and 1146 cassette.
And on that Slash is a full 29er, I believe. I feel like you don't have to stress the like absolute shortest cage possible, just because there is a bit more clearance because you've got the bigger wheel.
Yeah. Or you could go new XT wireless that comes in short or medium cage
true.
and the 945 is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is a nice. I really like the 945 stuff, but
yeah, and he's already running also, a 30-tooth cassette or
32-tooth chainring. Yeah. True.
Yeah. Couple options.
Yeah.
Either buy the old stuff that's pretty cheap, the medium era Link Glide stuff, or the brand new thing. But
yeah,
favorite trick.
Ooh.
If I could do one trick, it would be the fast 360, like a long and low 360, like Kurt Voorhees. That's the coolest trick.
Those look so scary.
Yeah, and that's why they're sick. Like you watch Kurt like hit a long ass jump and just like do a very flat 360. Like that's an insane trick.
I just picture catching the note, like catching your.
Oh yeah, I'm never gonna try one in my life, but like it's really cool.
Yeah, 360 and a full suspension bike at speed, or even off a steep lip, is something. I've only done it a couple times and I've ended up on my ass. So I saw our dog 360, one of those like shark fin hips at that new place down in Washington, where they had that like
the
Burmese
Fort
race.
Gamble jumps. Yeah.
It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So Dump 360 is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would maybe go with a good knack because there's so many different varieties of those.
Yeah. A Faircloth knack.
Yeah, you got those. Or you got like the slope style ones, like Edgar Briol, those like the super tucked up compact ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lots of actually, Swedish guy Martin Soderstrom kind of like, I would say, did that first, kind of made that his signature.
Yeah, he had such good style. I kind of miss seeing Soderstrom's runs. I'm sure he's still riding well, but yeah, back in the day, he was king of the style. I really like obviously another trick I can't do, but the backflip look through. We like backflip, but then they kind of tuck and they're almost looking through their belly button, sort of. I think like, there's a few people doing those now, but it always just look kind of.
I feel like Talus has a good one.
Yeah, Talus Turk's got a good one like that right now. It just looks different.
Yeah.
Things to work on. Hopefully, I think we answered his questions. Obviously, the 1 foot table with Rise Against playing in a tank top is the best. He already knew.
My buddy Trevor's got a really good X Up ET, and it's objectively the funniest looking trick you can do in the air.
Oh, weird.
I think maybe I should start working on that because he's also like a lanky guy. It's just like you just look so complicated.
It sounds like it could go so wrong.
Yeah, you just get laying backwards while you're pedaling, and then
it's just like the arms are backwards, the legs are spinning. It looks so funny.
Yeah, you're gonna accidentally hit your dropper post while you're pedaling, and it's gonna go up.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see what we got next.
Hey, Pinkbike crew. Loving your content. Been listening for years. Scott from Australia. Just done with the analog and acoustic. Why can't we just call them mountain bikes or e-bikes? Like, you don't need all the other thing, right? We had mountain bikes and we pedaled them everywhere. Then we got e-bikes and we pedaled them further. And that should be all we need. So can you boys, I mean, if you can come up with down country and make that stick, surely you can just call them mountain bikes, e-bikes, spread the word and make that stick. So do that and I'll continue pedaling my e-bike into the distance and wave hello to my mountain biking compadres. Get it done, boys. Get it done.
I feel like we're generally good about that, right?
Yeah. And the only thing, the trouble is that e-bikes aren't all mountain bikes. So if you say e-bike, that could be your commuter bike. So you kind of have to you have to call it something, and like an mountain bike is what they are.
Yeah.
But
well, we do. I think like written, it's easier because we say EMTB generally on the site, and then you'll say like the non-assisted variant of that bike. If there is such a thing.
Non-assisted, or unassisted. That's
non-motorized.
I do generally. I try to be good about this, Mr. Scott. Just saying mountain bike because otherwise it's just like too many caveats before a thing. But
I think, but there was like Levy's argument that people that say that e-bikes aren't mountain bikes. That doesn't really work though. That's the only problem because e-bikes, you are mountain biking. Like you're riding up a mountain and down a mountain on a bicycle. It just happens to have a electric motor now. So
true.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say overall we're trying. I don't think we're going to invent any new categories, but if you look at our reviews, call us out if we do it wrong. But usually it says EMTB or something like that, and then regular bike, say regular bike. I don't use acoustic or analog usually. Maybe I'll use analog because I kind of like that better, but I definitely don't use acoustic because that one bothers me.
Or Amish, or
No,
I don't
use those. Yeah.
I don't fuck with either of those.
No, yeah.
Amish people don't have suspension, you know. They're riding around on the safety bicycle.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, that BC bike race just put off the Megavolt thing, and they called it the EMTB festival. So
yeah, I think that works pretty good. E-mountain bikes, non-e-mountain bikes. We'll see where it goes. Well, we made it this far without talking about e-bikes, so some people would be happy because I think we have there's 2 people that say they're going to stop listening because sometimes we talk about e-bikes, but we tricked them because we made it.
How could you discuss a relevant component of the broad industry that you have to?
Yeah, it's all right.
Deliberate.
We made it this far, so yeah. Thanks everybody for the questions, and hope you enjoyed this podcast. I guess we should wrap up with some quick predictions for the race because we got another World Cup race coming up. Who's going to win? What do you think, Dario?
Oh shit, you put me on the spot. I feel like it's hard for me to answer these with like who I wish would win versus like who I think will win. Honestly, I think Loris could do really well here. I feel like he's kind of been building, and like this is a track that he tends to do pretty well on. I haven't looked at what weather is going to be like, and we're kind of a ways out when we're recording this to where weather isn't that accurate, but it'd be interesting to see how he does. On the women's side, I can't help but think that Valley is like still trying to dominate this season, so maybe her is my 2.
Yeah, a little steeper. She can kind of get it back. For you, Matt?
I think Almery is due for one. He's been saying I've heard
last year.
Yeah, and
it was wet.
He's just such a strong rider, and that's what this track really takes to get it done. And he said, or like somebody has been saying, or I've heard it said that he was sort of overriding a couple of the tracks in the past this season, and so I think this one, if he could like settle it down, his like normal race pace would be like a winning run. And then for the women, Valley.
I mean,
Valley.
You said it before
Gracie.
we recorded, though. Like you've got Gracie up there.
Yeah, she does really like the steep tracks. She seems to do well. So yeah, maybe I'll lean towards Gracie. 3 in a row would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. It'd be such a strong start to
season.
Yeah, so impressive. That'd be cool. And then Eric, how about you?
Kind of leaning the same way for the women's. I feel like seeing Gracie the last 2 weekends, I wouldn't be surprised if she was able to pull off a 3-peat. I know obviously that would be
sick.
Impressive and not common, but wouldn't be surprised. I think otherwise, Tane was also had a pretty strong start to things, so I wouldn't be surprised if she was able to get in there. And then on the men's side, I think against Lord and Matt, Amory I think would be overdue for one this season, and based on how he did last season, it's clearly a track he's comfortable on and does well with.
So good.
So it seems like the right spot for him for sure.
Yeah, I think Amory's a good call. I think I'm gonna go Ronan. I think he's getting close, but if he can hold it together, it's always the case with him. If he can just hold it together.
Dude. Yeah,
and then
his runs last week were so scary to watch. Yeah,
and then Gracie too. I'd love to see Gracie do 3 in a row, but I think it is probably a good track for Valley also. Should be some.
None of us mentioned Jackson. I mean, he's also won the past 2 races. Like, the odds are not necessarily in his favor, but like he's on a pretty good roll.
He should. I mean, he really. Yeah, he can't. Obviously, you should probably put him as the Amory though. Amory just has that kind of. It's like it's so different watching those 2 ride. There's 2 totally different styles, and they're both crazy fast. So it'll be a good race. So everybody that's
Team Canada 3-peat would be pretty impressive too.
Yeah, that would be neat.
There are a lot of people I want to see win.
Yeah.
Same. That's the challenge with these. It's like, I mean, that's why the racing is so good right now. There's like so many characters that you want to do well, and then, I don't know. I'm stoked for it. Should be cool.
That'd be good. If by the time you listen to this, you can still update your fantasy team, go ahead and do that. If not, hopefully you picked some good riders. All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week. Don't forget to drop in some comments, give us a call, try to answer them when we can. Catch you next time.